What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? It is your boys, Matty P and Marky D, with another kind of a little random show to sort of keep you tied over for the draft week. We're only a couple of days away. Might even be the day, depending on when you're listening to this on the audio or watching it on the YouTube side of things. Obviously, the Steelers go into this draft with a new GM. It's been a different offseason. There's been a lot of talk about Omar Khan. And Mark and I have been done so much talking off air about it that I wanted to quickly, and Mark was willing to jump on with me, which is awesome. We talked a little bit about what Khan's been doing through the offseason the last few weeks, right? Now we're getting to the draft. And the draft's a part of that offseason, but it's sort of a different kettle of fish. We also talk about Andy Weidel having a bigger impact, Dan Colbert. You also talk about Cody White's dad as well. I think it's Stephen White. I can't remember his first name, but Cody White's dad, who's in part of the Steelers front office there as well, and having a mental blank on that name. So what they're going to do in this draft could be very different. Now, we're recording this podcast sort of 12 or so hours after Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin had their pre-draft press conference. And it was interesting in some of the narrative that was there. Now, there was a lot of talk about the pick 32. There was a lot of talk about cornerbacks. They were asked a lot about Joey Porter. I feel like that narrative. I don't want to get into specific players necessarily, but more positions. And then I thought about, hang on a second. When the Steelers have drafted previously, the way they've talked at the combine has often been very telling about what their draft day plans were. And they do like, as much as they like juniors, they do like at key positions senior players. And we know that the Steelers had a big presence at the Senior Bowl. We know that the cornerbacks coach there also had a big role in coaching the defense. I think it was for the national team. I probably got it the inverse. But we know the Steelers basically had a big presence at the Senior Bowl. They spoke to a bunch of players. They said in this press conference that they'd spoken to at least 30 or 40 guys formally, and they'd spoken to probably another 20 or 30 informally. So I wanted to go back, and we'll bring up the audio. I wanted to go back to what Omar Khan's comments were at the Senior Bowl to this question. He went out a 5-minute interview and he got asked this question. So we're gonna play it.
We're at right now. We're at the combine. Who are you what position group are you looking at as being probably the deepest and most talented?
Fortunately for me, first year as a GM running the draft. This is a great draft. I mean, there are some really good, talented players. I mean, regardless of position, the O-line, the D-line, the corners, the linebackers. It is just it's setting up to be a really good draft. There's some good football players. So I'd say it's strong everywhere.
When are you thinking about where we're at?
Right. So O-line, D-line, linebacker, cornerback, right? That was where he went. Now, I want to get your take on it, Mark. But one thing I'll say, Daniel Jeremiah has said for weeks now, there's less quality offensive tackles than there are cornerbacks, and the Steelers pick at 32, right? He talked about linebacker 2, Omar Khan, and we've mocked like a guy like Jack Campbell at 32 a billion times. Maybe they wait till 49, and you look at a guy like Dan Henley there, or Henry To'oTo'o, one of those guys. I just want to get, what is your feeling when you listen to that?
My first instant reaction and gut feeling is you named the O-line first, right?
Yeah.
So,
and he did very similar in the press conference that he had, within 12 or 24 hours.
Is this question in reference to the 17th pick, the first pick, or is it in reference to 32, or is it in reference to everything?
Correct.
A few trains of thoughts if we want to try and break this down and we want to guess. So for me, you went O-line, D-line, so offensive line, D-line. I guess that's kind of the way you would picture a team anyway, but it's not going
well, in today's press conference, they said they were very happy with the depth at the quality they listed a bunch of positions and quarterback was one, but they said we're not quarterback shoppers, so we don't care about that, right?
Yeah.
And they said O-line, they didn't say tackle. The Steelers have already filled a lot of O-line needs. Offensive tackle, we know there's kind of 3 guys at the top, and then there's a big gap to the rest.
Right. And they also, so they included key areas that I think that the Steelers are going to draft anyway, that are offensive line, defensive line, and corners too. I said in my show today, I'm more leaning now towards the first pick being offensive line.
Yeah.
I can just see that in the trenches. I know the narrative of Porter Jr. Shaw has been there for like months and months. I'm not cut if they get him. I'm not cut if they don't get him. But I feel like even from this press conference the other day, first of all, the two fellas are both so confident, aren't they?
Yeah. And
He's
you know
still-
what? Mike Tomlin is super chill, man. I feel
He's
like
very
he's getting a
happy.
chance to be a lot more of himself that he didn't get to be under, Kevin Colbert. But I don't want to go into that. That's a thing we could talk about as we head into the season. I think there's a very different persona and demeanor that he has versus what he had, under Kevin Colbert.
Just these two blokes here working together in that press conference was kind of cool to see. They were backing one another as well. If you want to talk about if he names O-line, D-line, he's almost named, pretty much a good majority of the team, like throughout the whole team, right? But it's interesting he starts first with O-line.
Both times he started with O-line.
Now,
right?
is that
now? I don't want to read too much
stuff?
into it. Like I don't want to read too much into anything because that could be the first thing that comes off his tongue. And also, he could mean it's all across the O-line. It's very, very good quality and depth, which means if they might look at an interior guy in round 2, it might not be necessarily a tackle. You've also got to see the way the draft board falls. But in the draft press conference, which we haven't played any audio from, he talked about that potentially, would they consider trading up? I don't think they're trading up. I don't think they can trade up high enough to get a top corner, but they can trade up high enough. I mean, by top corner, I mean Devin Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez. I think those guys are going to pick before that, particularly if there's a run on quarterbacks. But I do think they can trade up to get an O-lineman if they wanted to.
Can you play the audio again just to hear the start of the question?
Yeah.
Is that? I just want to break that question down.
Yeah.
Right now, we're at the combine. Who are you what position group are you looking at as being probably the deepest and most talented?
Fortunately for me, first year as a GM running the draft, this is a great draft. I mean, there are some really good, talented players. I mean, regardless of position, the O-line, the D-line, the corners, the linebackers. It is just it's setting up to be a really good draft. There's some good football players. So I'd say it's strong everywhere.
One of your
Good. It's a good answer. First,
it's a great answer. I mean, look, I work in media training for a living. It was textbook. He gave some detail, but they kept it pretty general across the board. But all I'm going to say is they talked a lot about offensive line and tackles in the draft press conference today. It's the first thing he cited, and even still, I put out less than 24 hours ago. Although by the time this goes to air, maybe it's been exactly 24 hours. My top 75, I picked the first 8 players have been released that I've released for day 1. Then we've got more to come on day 2 and day 3. And my trend was it's going to be trenchy, not trendy. They've just labeled the trenches again in both press conferences.
Yeah, right. Isn't the bloke you listen to, Bucky Brooks?
Yeah, and Daniel Jeremiah moved the sticks. Yeah.
He in his latest mock draft, I did a video on yesterday or today, but he mocked Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright, yeah, to the Steelers. So, what are your thoughts in this whole conversation? Throughout the press conference that Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan did. What are you really trending towards? They're going to do at 17:32.
If they think someone's really darn good, they could trade up. I understand that narrative. But I could also see them trading back, which would then allow them to trade back on 32 and then get like multiple day 2 picks, right? Like I'm talking multiple, right? Because if you traded back in round 1, you want a second or a third, right? There, maybe you get an early third. If you trade back 32, you might be looking for another second or third. Like to me, it's how do you get as many day 1 and 2 picks as possible? Do I think they'll go back further than 25? No. And when you and I did our recent mock, we only went back a few spots. I think that's certainly the case there. But it also depends. See, it depends who trades up in front of them. It's a bit like last year in the draft where there were all these trades before the Steelers picked, where it basically, as you got to about 12, you worked out really it was only the Saints that would be ahead of the Steelers in picking Kenny Pickett. And then Chris Olave fell to them because there were trades involving like AJ Brown. I think there was another wide receiver that went. Maybe it was AJ Brown went. So did Hollywood Brown. I don't think Kadarius Toney moved in season. So there were 2 wide receiver trades, which meant that then Chris Olave fell, right? And then the Saints went in and got Olave instead of getting Pickett. I thought they were very in on Pickett, purely as well because of what he could do in an indoor stadium, and then they didn't go that route, and then he falls to the Steelers. And everyone talks about Steelers having to trade up. They might have been, but they didn't, and they stayed where they were. And technically, Pickett could have been picked by the Saints before them. So I think when you look at this draft, answering your question, they can go back or they can trade up. Now, Mike Tomlin said trade up first. That's because logically you think trade up before you think trade back. I wouldn't read too much into that necessarily. I think they'd be happy. I think why would you trade? Unless someone offers you something to get for your pick and go backwards, why would you trade when the board can fall to them and they should be able to get a tackle or unless there's a crazy run early, they should be able to get a tackle and they should be able to get Brian Breesy will be there if they really like him out of Clemson. And there's a lot of things saying that. And then secondly, one of the cornerbacks Deontay Banks should be there. Or Joe Potter. If there's a run on corners between picks, when I've talked about it with you with Detroit, between 6 onwards, Joe Porter could be gone before the Steelers even pick, right? So why? That's the thing. And if he goes, if 4 cornerbacks go from pick 6 to 8, like that's when the run starts, well, then the tackles are going to fall. That's the beauty of pick 17. You're going to get a top tackle, maybe the top defensive lineman apart from Jalen Carter. Or if you're really lucky, I don't think Witherspoon and Gonzalez fall. So if you're lucky, Deontay Banks falls. Otherwise, whatever.
Also, you're going to have like a run on quarterbacks too, because four of them are going to go. Does that mean?
Well, it depends. That's the thing. It depends what happens with Richardson and Hooker. Like, there's some school of thought out there that says 5 quarterbacks go in the first 12 picks.
That'd be great for us, right? Because then we have more.
Well, 100. If that happens, we get Broderick Jones, 100%.
Right. Do you know what I want to point out too? See the way that Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin are looking. That's the same way I look when I see a beverage at the bar. When you see that first
you say that's how you look when you jump on a podcast with me. I'm hurt.
Look at how happy they are. Look at they're just like, man, the Steelers are ready. I like that press conference the other day. I like even now breaking it down. If they go the trenches and they go, left tackle or they go offensive line, I'm keen for it, man. Because I reckon this team is getting better.
Who do you, like, obviously the draft is my thing. Who do you like? Just from everything you've heard, who's the one that you're like, you know what, that'd be cool?
I keep hearing the idea of the Paris Johnson. Is it? He's the bloke. He's a left tackle, right? I keep hearing that he could be a franchise guy. I've talked myself into now, I think, over the last few days that that's probably going to be offensive line. I think that's just the way the Steelers have done things in the free period and the draft. You went and got Peterson. You've got Wallace. You've got some corners. You still got. I know Millet's not like a great corner, but he's still a guy that can play. He's your third guy, maybe.
And you got Witherspoon.
Yeah, right. Witherspoon, they got Pierre.
And you got Pierre. Like, you got 5 guys. If you started the season tomorrow, it's not the worst cornerback.
No.
And it's a deep cornerback draft. Like, Jalen Jones would be I think, a back of the second pick in most drafts. He might last as long as till early in the 4th because there's just a lot of good corners in this draft.
There's 2 things I think that over Steel Nation, this might be the smokescreen this year, is that JPJ stuff, the Porter stuff is like, well, we need to get a corner, right? But we have other corners there.
And I think Mike Tomlin shut that down in that press conference. I don't think Mike Tomlin was trying to be misleading. I think he shut that down. He was like, I've seen plenty of guys. I've got relationships with plenty of guys. Like, but
that's
the
true.
other thing too, even if they've got the relationship, I said this in the day 1 picks. I'm okay if they draft Joey Porter at 32. I'm cool with that, right? Now, everyone will say he's not going to last that long, particularly with the Ravens at 22. Great. But to me, if you're going to spend a top 17 pick on a corner, he can't just play press and man. He has to be able to play zone. And Joey Porter can't play zone.
Yes. So the more I see it too, and same with the others and stuff too, it'd be great to get him with Kenny, whatever, right? But you've got receivers there too. They went and got a veteran guy. You got Pickens, Deontay. In my opinion, they're not going to trade Deontay unless something crazy happens. And then you still have Miles Boykin, who they got for a team, and he only caught 2 passes last year, but still they can use him.
Do you know the only reason they pick a wide receiver at 17? If they trade Deontay for an offensive lineman.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though, because you got these.
And you got to be a tackle. He'd have to be a top tackle.
I'm cancelling those 2 out, the receiver and the cornerback. I think I've come to the conclusion of that. Then I open myself up to, well, the O-line needs to get better. They went and got Ciamalo at left guard. That's fantastic. I think they're going to keep Cole there. They're going to keep Daniels there. I think Chuck's going to stay there. then do you improve on Dan Moore? And even if you get maybe go and get him at 17, then you have the illusion of the competition, and then maybe he beats out Dan Moore. Next minute, you got your left tackle.
But you know what? Maybe if even he doesn't, right? Maybe you need him to develop a particular trait. You don't have to start him week 1.
I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with Dan Moore.
That too, 100%.
Yeah, so maybe that's why they're so happy. And they did say there's a lot of depth in these positions. They did.
Look at Mike. No one can see my mouse, but look at Mike Tomlin's face. I'm just doing circles, on the smiley face for Mike Tomlin. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse or not, but like that's.
I can't see that. But no. So they might go that way, offensive line, to help, because they got to help out Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is the guy. They got to see if he is the guy for the next 5 years. Get him a tackle, get him offensive line, get him more help.
Even if he's not, let's say he's not, right? Archie Manning in 3 years' time, as a Texas Longhorns fan, Archie Manning could be the guy you want to draft, and you want to have a top tackle for him. This is a pick. The Steelers don't want to be picking 17 ever, well, not necessarily ever again, because something, we've got to be realistic. We haven't picked lower than 17 in a long time, right? Not since the Bush trade, where we traded up in the draft, right? So we don't want to be picking here for the next 5 or 6 years. So go get a guy that you can get at 17. And people say that's the argument for trading up to 9. If you're going to do that, well, then, okay. I don't know why you would do that for Skoronsky.
We're going to break this down. We're going to break this down. Would you get a middle linebacker, which we need? Would you get that at 17?
Not in this draft.
Okay.
But I would draft. I would be open to them doing it at 25 purely because of the 5th-year option. Yes. But I don't think it's likely. I think that's like a 1% chance.
Would you go and get an outside linebacker at that position, which is not the other need, and also what they talked about? So to me, it comes down to offensive line and defensive line. And I think they're going to go more towards offensive line and help out this. I think we did a mock before where we got the offensive line and we got Darnell Washington in with 17-32.
Yeah,
2 big fellas up front to run the rock, and they're going to do that.
Imagine Jalen Warren behind that man.
That's why I think they're so confident. I think 17. I've heard some narratives too. Oh, we're 17. You're going to get average players, but we get the top 3 picks is the top 50 players.
17 average players. I love.
I'm not going to name names.
I know, but I'm just saying, 17. There's been some good players picked. You know what? The only thing I would say is. I think the Raiders picked Leatherwood at 17 or 18, and he was horrific, but they should have shifted him inside to guard, and he should never been drafted that highly. But, I mean, apart from that, I don't remember a 17th or 18th pick in the last sort of 3 or 4 years that's been average, right?
The best thing is going to see how this breaks down on the day where the quarterbacks start going, cornerbacks start going, the edge guys too, and Jalen Carter, when I was going to go very high, probably top 10. And then teams go there because all these other teams have problems.
That's the thing. What you hit the nail on the head. If Jalen Carter falls to Detroit, the run on cornerback is very different. If you look at the draft order right now, it becomes very, very different. And then you're in the scenario. If Jalen Carter falls to the Lions and they pick him, you're in the scenario where the Steelers trading up for 9 could net them a Christian Gonzalez or a Devin Witherspoon, which would be lights out. But they're the only 2 cornerbacks I'm trading up for, right? So,
yeah, man. Yeah, I'm more or less leaning now towards, in the last 2 days, towards the offensive line. I think I want to see a big bruiser there. I was so high on JPJ, and I was high on, corners too, but I want to see offensive. We need to score points, man. They scored 18 points last year. They need to get better. So that would be my pick. But I think, everything's coming real fast and crazy right now. And I do trust the 2 fellas on screen. Dead set. Whatever happens, let's go.
I was gonna say, do you worry about Darnell Wright? Most people think he's going to be a right tackle, and the Steelers asked him at the Senior Bowl if he could be a left tackle, and he said he's happy to play left, but everyone keeps mocking him to the right. Would you be happy with the Steelers drafting him at right tackle? And I'll just throw out one thing as well. Okorafor he's actually affordable to trade this year or next, right? So if he works in training camp and preseason, you could always play him, even if he's only available on the right. I don't know why they'd move Okorafor, but you could, and it wouldn't be the worst, and you'd get something back. I'm just saying.
Yeah, to me, I think bringing in another offensive lineman would really help out this team overall. Yeah. You've already brought in 3 offensive linemen with their Clark, Herbig, and Ciamarlo. So bring on one more guy to this outfit, to this team, and you've got a whole new offensive line, and then the best 5 wins. Pretty much. Best 5 wins.
That's how it should be. And that's that is the other thing that you hit the nail on the head that was in this draft press conference was Omar Khan said his job is to bring in competition at every position.
Mate, I must be a good Steeler fan getting all these things right. Oh, you're from Australia. You don't know anything.
Yeah, you don't know anything. That's right. That's right. That's right.
No, everyone's cool on this platform. Mostly everyone. But no, I'm really excited. I've never been this far. It's probably because I know you now. And then you talk about the draft. 365 days a year. You talk about the draft. I'm like,
yeah, I know. I'll come out with my top 2024 prospects in a few weeks' time. So, it's I'm just really excited. I mean, as I said in the day one show, I mean, even Steve Avila, if they trade back, like Steve Avila, I'm so keen on that. I'm looking forward on this channel to being able to, in the next day or two, you'll see, depending on when you listen to this, you'll have day 2 and day 3 of my top 75 players out. So that's my 75 picks spread across days 2 and 3. We have a couple of 2 repeats from day 1. So really, you've only had 6 original out of the top 75 so far, 75 fits for the Steelers. So look forward to that. There's 69 more that I'm going to be able to get through. Marky D, you and I are doing live streaming for the draft. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can go check that out. That will be for the first, second, and we're debating what we do. The first and second day. We're looking about the third day, what the option is at the moment, depending on how the Steelers move in the draft, because there's a 112 pick gap at the moment. But you'll be able to find us live streaming on Steeler Nation Australia. So we know we've got a couple of We know we've got a couple of subscribers that are subscribers to both. If you're not, subscribe to that one. If you're already subscribed to that one, Mark, subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe to this one. We're 4 away from 100. We need 4.
We're 4 away from 100. We want to hit the 100 mark.
Let's get it.
We've only been going about, I think we're on our 9th week. So,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So we're doing okay. But, yeah. And anyway, we're keen to talk draft, live watch parties. You've got us. You can have the draft on the background, but you can definitely have a bit of fun with Steeler fans. On this channel, I'm going to be doing several videos through the first round talking about how it's evolving, what it means for the Steelers, a bit of that stuff. So you can catch us there in real time. Day 2 will be thick and fast for Steelers picks, particularly if they move back on 32. So we'll definitely have some reaction vids up. And then day 3, if we're not going live on Steeler Nation Australia, we'll be live on this channel. We'll work that out, whatever that's going to be. But basically, we are going to be your one-stop shop for all things draft. Really excited to do it. We're going to have some fun, bring the sports bar vibe into it. So, yeah, I'm keen. I want to get it over with. I want to know who's going to be a Steeler in 2023.
We're going to bring the same vibe that Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin are right now.
Yeah. See, this photo is them giggling. they're smiling and grinning to the thought of Matty and Mark. 12 hours of content, 12 hours of fresh content over the next 4 days from when the draft starts.
It's making me smile, watch these fellas smile, It's like they've done something naughty or something like that.
They've got there at the back of the class after putting a whoopee cushion.
But this is the confidence I was talking about. This is the confidence that exudes from this team right now and the new look and getting all the new players in because they got some veteran guys. Peterson, right? Robinson. Ciamalo, I think, would be one of the best ones out of the whole cast of players that we signed for a 3-year deal. And Kenny Pickett's year 2, and Kenny Pickett he's excited. This is something that I think we talked about 2 or 3 years ago. The culture was missing. Something was missing. Something was just missing around these things. Physicality.
Yeah, you feel a bit like the Steelers got their mojo back.
A little bit. And yes, we need to see the play on the field, and I get that. I understand that. But right now, and I'm not saying we're going to hype it. I don't think we're going to win the Super Bowl this year, but there are positive steps every week.
Hey, don't doubt that. Don't doubt that just yet.
Oh, I want him to win. I want him to win. I'm telling you, I want him to win. But
I'll tell you what has helped. This might sound crazy to some fans. The Allen Robinson trade has I've let that marinate in my mind with all the other moves they've made. They're going to be able to score some points now. And that's how many years have I been saying, Mark, to win in the AFC, you've got to score points. Even with the Rodgers trade to the Jets, you have to score points. This team's got points in them now. And if we get something, and that's why you go get a tackle in the draft.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's going to be tackle or offensive line. I think that's my pick now. I don't know the player because they might trade up, but that's my pick.
They might trade back, man.
They trade back and get a tackle. Yeah, I don't know. But I just think they're going to go there because, look, George Pickens' second year.
Because you know why? The Vikings might want to trade with them to get a top corner because the Vikings need a corner.
Did you know 1 year the Vikings missed their trade? I think it was in 2013. They didn't put their card in.
Yeah, that's right.
They missed it, not their trade. They missed it on their draft pick. They had too many drinks. He was having too many coffees and he'd forgotten. They just missed the whole pick.
That's crazy. All right. With that, we're going to close out the show. I'm Matty P with Marky D, as always.
Go Steelers. Here we go.